Hi, this is Humboldt Harvey, and this is my take on the third step. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. I'm going to take a sec here to remind you this is only my opinion. There are lots of perspectives on the steps, and this is only my way of looking at it. I hope it helps. Here in the third step, we find the books quite clearly state the main ingredient is willingness. Well, that's a whopping order. Some of us have been beaten into complete submission, and short of heinous crimes, for most of us that is, we're already willing to go to any lengths. In the first step, we found out and acknowledged our hopeless state of mind and body's addiction to alcohol, and further saw that it was due to our lack of reasonable emotional responses to, well, life. So, yes, we saw we were indeed powerless, and why. In the second step, we came to believe in a higher power of some kind that could and would indeed help us personally, and that we were worthy of being returned to healthy choices. Sanity, that is. Now, in this step, we may be confronted with a dilemma or two. For some who already believe in a personal God of their understanding, part of this step seems simple. Deceptively simple. I feel like the cartoon character Mr. Burns from The Simpsons, rubbing my hands together as I say that. And it's not often I get to moo-hoo-ha-ha. That's kind of fun. Now, I got the idea of a higher power, and had come to rely on it, as sort of a Bush League pinch hitter the book describes, as I had a limited understanding of its function and power. You see, I had this idea that whatever this mysterious, perhaps supernatural power might be, that it only worked when you were desperate or unhappy. I'd experienced it, and I knew for myself I had been spared the final outcome of my drinking. It worked, and in my case, at the last minute with a simple prayer of help. As my time in sobriety and life progressed, I ended up with more and more deeper questions as to the when, where, and why of turning it over. And what the heck was the will of a higher power anyways? I mean, I could see that I was powerless all right, and I got that I was not sane by any measure. And how was I supposed to understand surrender? Put it in the God box. Give it up to God. Yes, I got that part of acceptance from our serenity prayer. But to me, that didn't always solve my problems. What I lacked was a more complete understanding of which way to go with my life to help me fully embrace this power. Like many people in AA, I had a lot of questions and some old feelings of resentment at the seemingly unloving higher power of my incredible misunderstanding. I read everything I could about spiritual stuff, and I had had a pretty good exposure to spiritual ideas. Then it came to me that maybe if I walked with Native American shamans, lived in a cave and ate tree moss, prayed at the Stations of the Cross, or meditated on Hindu statues while burning sage and incense, that might be God's will. But then which one? Or all? And is this God the universe, or what? Relax. Don't overthink it, I'd be told. For in time it will be revealed. None of those satisfied my hunger to understand what I should do. But when I did turn it over, what would happen beyond being okay? Which turned out to be true. If I just let go of my fear and stopped acting on it in the moment, I got results. Don't misunderstand me. I got the idea of not being in control and letting that part go when I was disturbed. But what were the results of my letting go other than I could come to an acceptance of things as they are? Of course, that got stronger with practice and time. I had made that decision. I just needed help understanding what God's will for me was to do. I knew if I could figure out and follow the directions, I wouldn't have to turn so much stuff over all the time. Looking deeper into myself for answers, I began to see that we just pretend we understand our world because we can manipulate our environment and can label things. And after listening to many thousands of people share, I saw they too had fluctuating ideas about their higher power's function and limitations. And by that I mean many believe that there is a power that can do anything. But the common factor I could see was it seemed to follow certain patterns. And it was these rules of life that I came to understand were the basic universal expression of God's will. And I thought if I could see these and follow them, I'd have my answer. The first part of this equation I solved by coming to realize that our punny little brain can only use labels, such as there be a spoon, for instance, and I knew that there were atoms inside of that, and so on and so on. But really it dawned on me that I could no more understand the spoon's real nature than I could the whole universe. trillions of energetic vibrations humming along. Yes, I could probably go fetch one when asked, but I really was only seeing a unique conglomerate thing that I labeled. It further occurred to me that if I asked you right now to think of a car, that you would think of a different car than I would, and then asked you to think of an orange Camaro, you'd think of a different one also. And neither one of us can hold these different images stable in our mind's eye for any length of time. Well, what are you going on about, Harvey, anyway? It was then that I realized that we humans only think in abstractions. If I was to say to you, think of Jesus, for instance, we both would have different ideas of what he looked like, and at any given moment, different ideas about what he taught or said, and what it all means to each of us, depending on who we are and what is happening to us in the moment. Sure, you might be thinking, we all know we perceive the world differently. Not exactly earth-shattering revelation you got there, Harv. But then I focused on these abstractions that were all generated in my own mind and are the way I relate to the world. Knowing this, it became clear that I didn't need to define the higher power, as that was just labels in the moment, and impossible for me to really understand it. Man, was that a load off my mind. I could call it what I wanted to, or what felt right to me on any given day. I saw that the very nature of my own mind was in flux, and whatever I thought or felt was just my way of picturing things, including my ideas about the nature of my higher power. This higher power expressed itself through my mind's understanding of how the world around me worked, and there was the key for me to understand God's will. It was simple, actually. If I looked at my natural state, I could see that I responded to the world through my body, and then my emotionally affected mind made choices depending on the circumstances. If the higher power, be it the ultimate nature of reality, or consciousness, or the creator of souls, set up this world, then inherent in it and in me must be the capability of responding to it correctly. What did this power want me to do? Be a ballerina? A chef? Or a hobbit? Maybe. What's in us already was the path to find God's will. We were born with a set of observable, standard operating instructions. It was so simple I almost missed it. We all want to avoid pain and fear, and that's our nature, and most of the reason we drank. So God's will, or the inherent nature of humans, is that we can sense these things to keep us alive. But we warped them so badly that we couldn't find the peace and happiness that all creatures, including us, are born to seek. God's will is for you to use pain and fear to guide you away from pain and fear. We burned our hand on the stove, or in the oven as I did on the pizza pan 2 nights ago. Quite a nasty scab on the back of my hand at the moment. I don't want to repeat that. There are all kinds of experiences that brought me pain and fearful suffering. As I said, inherent in life itself is the desire to seek security and peace and avoid pain. In other words, to take the right actions and thinking that will result in less pain and fear. To pursue that which makes us really happy, not just full of false pride and ego things that really just bring us more pain, the perverted instinct the books talk about. A good way of looking at God's will is thinking about standing in a big cow pie out in a field. You decide to turn that over and lift up 1 foot to clean it. There, you think, I didn't get angry. I turned it over and I did what I could to clean up my foot. Then you go to lift the other foot. So God's will for me is to first let go of my dissatisfaction and then figure out I need to step out of the cow pie before I clean my feet, and to avoid walking in the direction of more cow pies. Lesson learned. This is what God's will is to me, this journey of discovery with my natural responses as my guide. And that was when I noticed the world responded to me with much the same energy I put out. Just like I'd always been told, I smile and the mentally healthy ones smile back. I smile, they smile. And as I became clear of all those things that I thought were maybe God's will for me, but didn't pan out, I came to realize they were just more fear-driven fantasies. I saw how my mind became clearer and clearer, not perfect by any means. And from clarity came a confidence that I was finally following the right path, as it felt genuinely good and not coming from ego-defensive, fear-driven highs. Reflecting on it, God's will is always done, whether you choose well or badly. The past is immutable, unchanging, and must have been God's will, conscious or unconscious. To me, I see the universe like a giant machine set up with these rules. I mean, if I was God, I'd design it that way and not be making moment-by-moment decisions. Although the rules might just be moment-by-moment decisions for all I know, who knows for sure? I believe, and you may not, that this is the path, and it was in us right there all along. Like natural compasses, we were made to find our way in the world, and just like a compass, there are two general directions, one that leads to peace, and the other, well, not so much. I've found that as long as you pick a good goal with clear intention, you may not make it to that one. But whatever does happen will most likely turn out well, as your mind learns to avoid the pitfalls of your own self-centered fear. Finally, I understood the connection between God's will and God, good orderly direction. So God's will for me is to respond to my needs and to those around me in a way that walks away from darkness into the light of good things. Why we call them good, if you stop to think about it, and it will take time to sift through your experience of what is really good and how to get there. This is the purpose of life on a spiritual path. Trust me, the light is always on. You just got lost hiding in the darkness of your own shadow. My advice is to make that decision to walk towards the light of clarity, away from that darkness of foggy thought and spirit. Temper your wants to that which you need to make you really happy, joyous, and free. Extra emphasis on the free. Don't try to understand all that God may be or may not be, as you can't. It's way above anyone's pay grade with our flickering thoughts. Relate to it however it's comfortable for you. Know that all the fear and pain you have felt was just trying to tell you what not to do. Stop fighting it and look at it. Trust in the process of letting go. Ask or pray for help and see obstacles as guides to a better way of life. Once you have, the desire to work the rest of the steps intensifies, because you know the true path to freedom from the never-ending emotional turmoil lies in clearing out those ghosts of the past. To finally see and understand those patterns in our defects that continue to take us off track. Then those old memories will no longer be thorns to catch you and take you back into the cycle of hellish, tormented emotions, ever steering you back towards more of the same. And the clearer your mind becomes, the more you will come to know God's will for you beyond doubt. May peace, love, and light be your heart's delight. Until next time, this is Humboldt Harvey wishing you happy trails.